Happy New Year's, Trekies, and welcome to Buffer Time, a show where a group of us jabber for an hour each week about whatever the most important topic at the moment is. Being between new Star Treks and any significant news, we're going to take the next month to talk about one topic each that we've always wanted to explore and Trek with other fans. We'll go around the order, introduce ourselves and projects, then the wonderful Eve will moderate a discussion of the Federation's shadowy underbelly, Section 31. I'm Dustin from Best of Trek, Worst of Trek.
I'm Eve, and my new podcast is starting this week called Trouble Without a Cause.
And I'm Scott of the YouTube channel Opinions No One Cares About.
All right, so Section 31. I forgot how big this topic was when I suggested it, especially because Discovery's expanded on it a lot. So let's tackle the biggest one. We all know that Section 31 operates on the ends justify the means. But does Section 31's ends always justify the means they take?
Well,
Definitely not always, but I think they definitely do as a whole more harm than good because, like Sloan says, they're competing against a galaxy that doesn't have the same values as them, and sometimes you need somebody that's competing on that same level to up your faction status.
yeah. Meanwhile, the last two I watched in preparation for this was the two-parter in Enterprise. And I'm thinking at the end, when Harris is talking with the Klingon admiral and realizes that, he's going to do his own thing now because apparently he has no more need for Section 31 or Harris. There he is. Yeah, I'm sure he was operating feeling like the ends justified his means, but he couldn't have predicted. Well, maybe. Knowing Klingons, but I don't think he really could have predicted that he was just going to get turned on at the end.
In that one, I definitely don't think the ends justified the means. A lot of what Sloan did, yes. Harris, kind of a weird dude.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair with Harris, they're existing before the Federation at that point, too. So they're protecting Starfleet as opposed to protecting the Federation, which Sloan is. His mandate is more the Federation, same as in Discovery. Their mandate would be protecting the Federation. So, so somebody that keeps peace. Somebody's got to get their hands dirty, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So this one was kind of more of a thought experiment, but we never got to see this in Star Trek. But what do you think would be the outcome if Sloan was on a mission and Garak was on a mission and their two missions somehow collided with each other? How would that play out?
I think that'd be one of my favorite new spy movies. Like literal spy versus spy, but not funny.
I don't know if it would be funny. Well, no, it could be funny because Garak's got a sense of humor where Sloan doesn't.
That is true.
And I'm kind of wondering how the two of them would, if it came to a head where they had to face off literally, what would happen there?
Oh yeah.
I think like you were just saying with the comedy, I think Garak would throw out a bunch of wonderful zingers, and Sloan would try to reiterate it logically. And I think it would be hilarious overall. I think it would be a good pairing.
Yeah, definitely a Garak victory though.
Definitely
9 times out of 10. Yeah. I think Garak gets Sloan 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, because Harris was recruited. Sloan was recruited into Section 1 presumably, but Garak basically grew up in the Obsidian Order, didn't he? So he's been at it for a lot longer.
Yeah, Garak's father was in Auburn he was the head of the Obsidian Order.
Mm-hmm.
And they have two different styles too. Garak operates almost openly, like he's thumbing his nose at everybody when he's doing his spy stuff. Cisco even says to him at one point, I am not the good doctor and we're not playing your games. Because Garak always seems to approach it as a game where Sloan seems to approach it more. It almost makes me think of the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Oh.
Okay.
Where you've got Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt and they're two different spies, and you see her spy agency, and they're very like tight-laced, very well-trained, they're like militaristic, sort of like Sloan. And then you see his, and it's almost like a bunch of frat boys playing spy.
Yeah. Fallen.
So which do we think would be the most effective of the shadow organization? Section 31, the Tal Shiar, or the Obsidian Order?
Probably Section 31, because they're the only ones that survive into the 25th century
That seemed like
that we know of. I think because the other two organizations mentioned here they're really your classic communist Gestapo faction that are looking more inward than outward as far as trying to find the dissent within their organizations. Where Section 31, granted, they did go after Bashir partially because they weren't sure what his real intentions were. But I imagine anyway that their primary mission doesn't look as inward as those guys do.
They tend to operate openly too, like people know they exist. Whereas Section 31 in Enterprise is underground. In Discovery, it's out in the open. And then by the time we see them again in DS9, they're underground again.
Yeah.
So whereas everybody knows about the Tal Shiar, and the Cardassians all live in fear of the Obsidian Order.
Yeah, right.
But nobody in the Federation really knows about Section 31.
Yeah, I mean, and you could say like they have sort of like the same amounts of power and influence. I think it's almost kind of like after the events of Discovery, Section 31 realized they needed to go underground, but still be working behind the scenes. Which in the end, does kind of make them more effective. Because do you fear the enemy more that is there, or the one that you can't see?
Yeah, that's true. Which kind of answers the next question we had, which was which one would be more effective. So, which was it, Julian's earnestness and devotion to Starfleet, or his genetic enhancements and his work with the genetically engineered that made him more attractive to Section 31? Because both of those things get brought up by Sloan.
I think for the mission they wanted him to go on in, I'm never going to say this right, the one with the Latin title, let's say.
Yeah.
It was his enhancements in particular, because he needed to study Koval like visually, and like diagnose him in the middle of a conversation, and his enhancements worked for that. But as far as other missions, most likely, his devotion to Starfleet and to do the right thing, because Sloan's telling him afterwards that you need men like him who can actually sleep at night after the things they've done.
I'm not sure. Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
I'm not sure that they originally were just going after him. I think originally they were just testing him to see if he was Federation or maybe really part of a Dominion plot. And then getting into it, they realized, oh, hey, there's an asset here.
That could be, because it's like when Sloan was talking about all this stuff that he did that was really making him look suspicious, like giving classified battle plans to his fellow augments, and eventually going with one of their ideas of surrendering. I could see how they'd be suspecting him from the beginning.
Right.
And they do go through a lot of effort, I mean, to arrange to test him. Like, they plot the timing and everything, and they set up a whole holodeck, and he's like, they go through a lot of effort. But I have to wonder too if his earnestness makes a good cover for him too when they want to use him as an operative, because who's going to suspect the nice guy?
Always suspect the nice guy.
And I mean, Julian's not much of a liar, we know that. So, but he does have that fascination with spy games. So I have to wonder, maybe that's why Section 31 thought he might be a Dominion spy, is because he has the obsession with spy games as well.
I do find it interesting that he spends his off time playing a spy sometimes and then wants nothing to do with Section 31.
Yeah, right.
It's like he's in love with the idea, but not the reality. Like a lot of, like how many kids, wanted to play James Bond or something, but if they had to live that reality, really wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah. And he is like intelligent enough to realize that, yeah, he can, play the game, but maybe just leave it as a game. Because out there where the stakes are real, there's more of a chance of mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the one where we actually really see him playing a spy, Garrick even brings up, or Bashir brings up the fact that Garrick takes this very seriously because he is a spy, and Bashir is just playing at it.
Mhm.
Yeah. What about Admiral Pressman? Is there a chance he was Section 31?
Well, I know he's going to be making an appearance in a later show, but
Yeah, I mean, the official answer is no, because Section 31 hadn't been invented in the canon by that point. But
right.
retrospectively, yeah, I don't think there's any possible way that 31 wasn't involved. Because
Yeah.
at the end of that, the chief of Starfleet intelligence or security and a couple other high-ranking admirals plus Pressman go down. And they at least have some passing familiarity with Section 31.
Or at least Starfleet intelligence.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't remember which one Pressman was.
In the Pegasus, where
Okay,
Riker has to live up to what happened in his past.
I'm going to say retroactively he probably was involved with Section 31 because the Pegasus one always reminds me of, like if you look online, like this declassified CIA experiments in the 60s and 70s,
Right.
and like them trying to make ships disappear and stuff like that, like teleport ships somewhere. I always got that sense that that's what the Pegasus was about, was like looking at that piece of our history and then running with it. Like, what if they actually did it? And considering that was like a covert op, I could see that being a Section 31 thing because Section 31 would love technology like that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You imagine just being able to transport, something like plant a photon torpedo in the middle of somewhere, not have to worry about it.
Yeah, like they kind of wind up with in the Kelvin universe. There's there's a lot of stuff in the Kelvin universe that makes things we take for granted in Star Trek obsolete. Like literally traveling by warp. No, you don't need to travel by warp. We have transwarp beaming now. You can, and by the end of it, you can like beam from planet to planet.
Yeah.
Still looking for Archer's prize Beagle, though.
Yeah.
No, that dog.
Do you think Sloan was telling the truth that Section 31 has no official headquarters?
No, I don't think so. As much as I'd like to think it's like the idea of like every member of Section 31, like the high ranking ones are like Sherlock Holmes with, his brain attic. I think you need an official headquarters, even if it's, unofficial and so far off the map, nobody knows where it is.
They do have one in the Kelvin verse because it gets blown up into darkness.
It's true. Mickey did that.
They do. So, I mean, they'd have to have some place to keep everything sort of centralized.
Yeah. Speaking of Sherlock
Well, I
Holmes.
think what we see at the end of the Peanut Hamper episode or the Crisis Point episode with Will Boimler joining Section 31, and they've got ships. They've got an unregistered Defiant class.
Right.
Even if it's just like a ship that's their headquarters, they've got to have something out there.
Yeah, even if it's an asteroid base or something that can easily be hidden.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would be something on Earth specifically. That would be too obvious.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a good idea.
Is there a possibility that the Orville could have a Section 31 counterpart? Since Seth MacFarlane was in Affliction, which is a Section 31 episode, and he's known to be a fan.
Huh. Well, I mean, admittedly, the Orville. I mean, you look at it; it is kind of like it is basically Star Trek, and I feel like the only thing that doesn't really have in comparison is transporters. It's weird that it like takes place further in the future, and I don't know if it's just because we expect it from Trek at this point, but like the orbital takes place in the 25th century, and yet they don't have transporter technology, but they have replicator technology. And in a way, those kind of work on somewhat of the same principle. So, I don't know. I think McFarlane took a lot more of the hopeful aspects of Star Trek, especially when it came to creating the Union. I don't know. It doesn't feel like there's a Section 31 counterpart there. But I mean, is there even like a new season? Have they got one planned after New Horizons?
I don't know. I think they do. Like, they haven't said they haven't.
I hope so. That last season was so good. But if they do, and they suddenly have a secret organization, I don't know if it would entirely track, but I could see it. I mean, even they have, their own admirals making shady deals with the enemy. So
I could see him doing it, but I think it would come out more along the lines of his depiction of the CIA in American Dad, where they're more bumbling and foolish.
Oh, and they can get Patrick Stewart for it.
Exactly. Like, have it half staffed by Ferengi or something, like.
Right.
I could see him doing it like as more of a joke. Like, I'm not thinking Section 31 in a serious aspect. I'm thinking more like, some sort of secret intelligence spy organization, but they're like the most ineffectual there is.
Oh, so they have like the organization of Section 31, but like the people of Starbase 80?
Yeah.
Would it be like Get Smart in the Orville?
That'll be so good.
Good old Agent 86.
That would be good, actually. I'd watch that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd watch the hell out of that. Do we think that Section 31 has a copy of the data on the augment virus? Because that's where they come in Enterprise, is around the time of the augments. And we do have an interest in Bashir's augments.
Well, I guess that goes back to the question again of whether they have a real headquarters or not. If they don't, I can't imagine that they would. But if they do, which we suspect they do, then I don't see a reason that they wouldn't. I mean, we know, at least in a parallel organization, the Obsidian Order, they don't let anything go to waste. They save people and weird things for centuries.
I mean, they would have, going back to whether or not they have a base, they'd have to have something, because they would have had to have had a lab to create the virus that they infected Odo and the Founders with, as well as the antidote that Bashir had to pull out of his head. So there has to be a base somewhere, because you can't just like magic things up. It's not Star Wars. But I could see that. I could see Section 31 keeping something like the augment virus. Now, whether they do anything with it, I don't know, but I can't see them letting something like that go to waste, because it's too good. It would be like if they got their hands on data. They're not going to let data go to waste. Although I'm scared of what they would do with that augment virus. Hey, maybe we have Section 31 already, and they're responsible for the COVID virus.
Oh, no.
Hey, who knows? All right. Why was Giorgio willing to be recruited in the bonus scene at the end of season 1?
I assume it's because it'd be going back to the Terran Empire and having to fight for her life.
Well, at the same time, she really didn't want to be taken. She wanted to die in the Terran Empire. So
also true.
I kind of wonder if she likes the chase. She likes the thrill of the hunt.
Could be.
Because we know she likes playing a lot of mind games, because she does play a lot of mind games, just the way she talks and stuff. Like, I get the sense that for her, it was a way to get back in the game, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, it's the closest thing in the Prime universe to what she's used to, and they're giving her some prestige at that point when Section 31's more well-known, so she's got some clout over the rest of the fleet.
It's fair.
Yeah. And I mean, Leland is aware that she is Mirrorverse. So is there a chance that maybe some of the other there's other Mirrorverse people in Section 31?
I doubt it, but it's entirely possible somewhere in the timeline.
Yeah. You can't count on them all being transporter clones.
Yeah, there's only been a few crossovers, and it wasn't till I recently rewatched the original Mirror Mirror that there's just a little line that Scotty says about how if they don't get out of the mirror universe in the next 15 minutes, you won't be able to do it again for a century.
Yeah.
And then just over a century later, the universes come back together and there's more crossover.
Yeah.
But then we're told in Disco that the universes have moved so far apart that you can't even cross over anymore. So, maybe, but probably not.
Unless they're maybe trapped in our universe like Georgiou was. Because, I mean, it's an easy way to deal with them, because the last thing you want is somebody walking around, you know, who might be dead in our universe or have two copies of a person walking around in our universe. Be an easy way to deal with them, I get. And they don't have to hide who they are.
True.
Is dying a prerequisite for becoming a full Section 31 agent as opposed to an operative?
I mean, it kind of seems like it. There's no official file on Sloan. Like Archer said, you know, he looked into Harris and said he'd been part of Starfleet security until about 5 years before the events of Affliction and Divergence, but then he just kind of disappears.
And Boimler,
You didn't say he died. Anyway.
Yeah, Boimler didn't die, but he appears at least to the rest of the crew to be dead.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that dying, maybe not necessarily a prerequisite, but that it would be a big part of how some of them become operatives, because it's the easiest way to erase the record of somebody.
Yeah. Dustin, didn't you do a video on that episode? Like it was an initial thought, and you actually had questioned Will Boimler's death?
Yeah. When we were first told about halfway through the episode that, oh, hey, he's dead, I'm like, that seems really convenient. This seems like a Trip Tucker, we're gonna use this as the way to get you into Section 31 moment. And
right.
Especially within Lower Decks, that's a really, really good way to come back with something from Beta Canon and do something fun with it.
Yeah, because Trip is in Section 31 in the books, I think.
Yeah, I've got one of the 3 books where he's been in Section 31.
Although I'm trying to picture Trip in Section 31, and it's not really working. It doesn't seem like the type.
Yeah, I can imagine why you'd want to.
Well, I guess it's better than being dead.
yeah. That's good.
Although in Star Trek, it seems like no one's ever dead.
Right?
And if we bring back Enterprise for, you know, a miniseries or a movie or anything like has been kind of pitched around, I don't think you can't not bring Trip back and use that bit of Beta Canon. If they did, it would be even more worthless than the last episode of Enterprise.
Yeah.
That episode was... I never understood that episode, to be honest.
No.
Not many people do. I don't think it's the worst Enterprise episode, but it's right down there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a Shades of Riker episode or something.
Yeah.
So why did Section 31 use fake O'Brien to tip Bashir off to the fact that they're on to him just before they let him know they're on to him? It was hard to read.
For me, I guess it was just a way to get O'Brien into the scene and fulfill some contractual obligations, is my guess.
I literally don't even remember this.
Poor O'Brien. He gets no credit ever.
Everything.
I thought that was an accident, because like when he notices that the shoulder isn't messed up, and Sloan admits that if they had known about the shoulder, they would have worked that in, but they didn't know about it. So to me, I thought that was a total accident on their part.
Very rare slip up on their part, yeah.
Which, I mean, considering they lose control of control, wouldn't be the first time they've had an accident.
Mhm.
I mean, I thought that Cisco and the others being awfully aggressive was a little bit off at that point. Like for the first time I saw the episode, because I think I was a teenager, and I was like, that doesn't seem like the crew. They're not usually that mean to him. Like, what's going on? And then with O'Brien with the shoulder, that's when it was like,
Yeah.
something's not right here. Something's fishy. But I thought, yeah, I thought it was an accident. I don't think they meant him to find out that quickly.
Yeah. Although, should we have seen it coming? Like when O'Brien walked into sick bay with his shoulder injury, should we looked at it like, it's like, oh, that's Chekhov's shoulder. They mentioned it. They're going to use it again later.
Not really, because I mean, it's not the first time that O'Brien's holodeck adventures have injured him.
I was
Yeah.
just gonna say it's like the 18th time he's come into some sick bay or another in Star Trek because oh god, the river's calling.
Mhm.
I mean, there was even that one episode of Deep Space Nine where it was like almost everybody was coming into the sick bay for stupid things. And finally, Julian's like, I'm just going to treat people and I'm not going to ask questions anymore. After Quark tells him his tympanic tickle went wrong, and he's like, I don't want to. Like, O'Brien seems to be there just to be abused, I swear.
Mhm.
He must suffer more than anybody in the franchise.
Mhm.
I think there's an entire meme thing about that, too.
It sure is.
Nope, he wanted his frontier medicine, so.
Speaking
Not
of which,
it.
do we want to take that touch point of an opportunity to introduce our new segment of Best Meme We've Seen This Week?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So we couldn't decide. We narrowed this down to two. This doesn't necessarily have to be memes that are brand new, just new to one of us in the group.
Huh?
And I'll put up both of them.
That one you can
The
see.
first
part
that
Yeah,
of
you
it.
might need to shrink that a
I'm
little
going to
bit.
move it up. The first.
You.
Slimer and Beverly Crusher, the ultimate fantasy. Ooh.
That one makes me laugh in particular because there's a member of my Star Trek group that's also a member of the local Ghostbusters group. So
The Ghostbusters had groups. Okay.
well, that's a rule 34.
And then our other favorite of the week, Cobra Kai Win.
Yes. I love this so much because I'm working on my Cobra Kai review.
Yeah, I
Heck yeah.
started watching your Cobra Kai ones.
Yeah, everybody should go hit a like and subscribe over on Scott's channel. Opinions some people sometimes care about.
Actually, the Cobra Kai show has done pretty well for itself, I gotta say. I mean,
That's
it's not
true.
it's
For a
not
Netflix
tired
show.
actors. Yeah, it's not tired actors 30 years later. Like there's still a lot
Yep.
there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm kind of disappointed we didn't get a season announcement at Christmas like we have the past few years. So, but I do know there is another season coming. I just wish they'd get it to it already. But
Yeah, it's about time.
I'm trying to imagine, her running a dojo. You call that a block, my child?
Training a society of Vedic assassins.
Mhm.
Yeah, considering she was an assassin.
Yep.
All right.
What
I
do we
don't
got
know.
for section 31.
Okay. I have to click back. I had something pop up on my screen. Okay, so no, we had that one. Can non-human Federation members become Section 31? Considering Section 31's
say.
job is protecting the Federation. Like, could we have an Andorian member or something? I can't see Vulcans doing it very well.
I mean, I would hope so. We can't say for sure. I think it's mentioned at the end of, again, that episode that I'm not going to try and pronounce, that Koval is actually either Section 31 or working with Starfleet intelligence, but but the Romulans aren't Federation members. Not yet,
Yeah.
Neil.
Right, but he is working for Section 31. They do explicitly state that. So I would go with that as the answer.
Although why they'd want a Romulan working for Section 31, I'm not sure, considering they're supposed to be protecting the Federation and the Romulans are still a threat at that point.
Why would you not want a high-ranking Romulan official in Section 31 under your thumb?
Who's hopefully going to influence,
Yeah.
Romulan policy to serve the Federation's interests.
They would have to have a hold on him then, I would think. Like I can't see a Romulan willingly betraying their own people. I would think they'd have to have like a hold over him.
Maybe they get him thinking there's a cure to. Damn, what is that syndrome he has?
Oh yeah,
Patrick's. I think it's Patrick's syndrome.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Or maybe they're giving him just enough treatment to keep him alive.
Maybe.
Because they'd have to have a hold on him. I can't, because Romulans don't typically turn on their own. They're like Cardassians that way. They are pretty loyal.
Yeah.
We don't know his whole backstory, though. It could be similar to Commodore O, and the Romulans put her in there, decades ago, and she worked her way up. We don't know if he's been in with Section 31 for a long time or just a year or so.
Yeah. I could see Tuvok having been with Section 31 at one point, considering he was sent to infiltrate Maquis, but...
In Tim Russ's alternate fan stuff after Of Gods and Men that he tried to do, Tuvok was the head of Section 31 in that.
Nice. That was me just thinking out loud. I didn't...
Yeah, no, that's an almost real thing.
Yeah.
Almost.
I think in canon, what we're going to find out, if this Section 31 show that we've been teased with for 3 years actually comes, I think we're going to find Julian Bashir at the helm.
Yeah.
I could
into
see
the 25th
that.
century. Did any of you guys see the script reading fun thing that Alexander Siddig and Sirach Lofton and Andrew Robinson did a couple years ago during COVID? During the lockdowns, somebody, I don't know who put the script together, but they read a script of kind of where things are, like 10 or 15 years after DS9. And one of the things it was Bashir as the head of Section 31 meeting with Garrick.
Okay.
That would be interesting.
That idea.
And then Jake Sisko was like a reporter that got in on it and was trying to get a story. It was fun. For just like 3 guys sitting in a room like we are, just reading a script, kind of deadpan. It was fun.
Is that online? Can that be done?
It's on Alexander Siddig's official page somewhere.
Okay. I'll look it up then.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember the name of it, but
I mean, the way he's aged too, like the way the actor's aged, totally would fit as the head of Section 31 because he looks a little rough these days.
I loved seeing him in Game of Thrones. It was a small role, but I liked him a lot.
Later on Gotham, he played Ra's al Ghul. That was awesome.
Yeah, I saw him in Gotham. I didn't watch Game of Thrones, but I'm a huge Gotham fan, and yeah, he did a really good job there. I actually just saw a thing recently too about him because they're doing all these things about like the 30th anniversary of Deep Space Nine, and they were saying that it was I guess Deep Space Nine was his first time doing American TV, and he had always said he wouldn't do American TV unless it was Star Trek. And he wanted to deliberately play Bashir as being unlikable at the start.
Well, he succeeded.
Yeah. I mean,
from what I heard,
him grow too. Like, he grew a lot.
Yeah.
I was going to say, from what I hear there, too, they didn't have a backstory for Bashir as the writers. They just kind of threw it at him, and it got figured out as the seasons went on. As evidenced by, oh, hey, late in the game, you're genetically engineered. Which I do like. I know some fans hate that, but I love that they added that to his character. It finally gave him an air of meaningfulness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I found it interesting too. Like, I mean, people, like a lot of fans will say that, and I agree that Bashir and O'Brien was one of the best, bromances in Star Trek history. And I know I saw a thing, they were in an interview or something, and apparently initially the two actors hated each other. Apparently they did not initially hit it off, and they went to a British pub or an Irish pub after one of the filming or whatever, and Bashir was getting treated pretty poorly. And he initially said, well, they're treating me poorly because I'm brown, I'm Sudanese. And Colmini goes, no, they're treating you like that because you're British. Because of his accent and everything. But yeah, initially, apparently they didn't like each other at the start. They did not get along. So apparently the animosity we saw at the beginning was real. Which kind of makes sense. I mean, you've got this grubby jack of all trades Irishman who's seen too much on the front lines. And then you've got sort of this young pup who's just out of Starfleet Medical and got a stick up his backside.
Yep.
But I mean, yeah, apparently he did play the character as being unlikable initially on purpose. So, which is kind of sad, but it works.
Yeah.
All right. Where are we here? All right. So why do Georgiou, Leland, and Tyler have such differing views of how to accomplish the same Section 31 goals? Because we see them in Discovery. They're all focused on the same goal in season 2, but they're all kind of working against each other. They're not getting along. He looks hungover there.
Yeah, I did find it fascinating when I rewatched these recently how different a style everybody has. I mean, Georgiou she's just still the empress of the Terran universe, trying to exert what she can on Starfleet. Where Leland, he does seem dedicated to Starfleet, but he's also very centered on himself and his career and moving upwards. While Tyler is just happy to be here and not dead at the hands of the Klingons.
Fair.
Yeah, Georgiou seems still very cutthroat. Because she's not like, I notice she kind of brushes off Tyler all the time. It's almost like she sees Leland as a threat, but not him. I kind of got the impression she views Leland as a bit of a threat. Maybe not to Starfleet, but to herself. Because the two of them spend more time arguing than they do actually getting along. Oh man, he looks like one of my university professors. No, he kind of does. I always forget that.
I think this picture is before he's taken from Control, too.
I think so, yeah.
Is anyone surprised he got taken by Control?
No.
No.
So here's a question we didn't have on the list. Is Control actually Section 31 by the time it evolves, or is it just its own thing?
I think it evolves beyond its programming. Kind of like how Data evolves beyond his initial programming, or how like the Enterprise births its own entity in that bizarre episode.
That's just weird.
Yeah, but that's the first thing that came to mind was the Enterprise giving birth. But I mean, we've seen technology before that's evolved past its programming. So I think Control I think it started out to be they started out as Section 31, but it got away from them. And I know there's a theory out there that eventually it might have something to do with the Borg. That theory's been tossed around, but
I have kind of been waiting on 32nd Century Borg, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Imagine Control plus Borg.
Oh.
Can we not?
I mean, Control on its own was able to wipe out the galaxy, apparently, so with the Borg,
But yeah, I think Control was one of those things where it just kind of got away from them.
So you don't think it's Section 31 by the time it evolves, then, is what
the
question is. Yeah.
No, I think it moves beyond that. It seems like it's one of those things that just because something is a good idea doesn't mean, or seems like a good idea doesn't mean it should have been done. They're playing with something that they really weren't ready for.
Very true.
Sort of like nuclear. It reminds me of like the early nuclear technology experiments when they started like testing nuclear bombs and stuff in the 50s and 60s, but they really didn't know what they were playing with. And how they would send people out to examine the debris right after the explosions went off and things like that. And then those people now have permanent health issues and permanent damage. It kind of made me think like that, like they got their hands into something that that was beyond what they could handle.
Right, like the Castle Bravo test that was only supposed to be 5 megatons and ended up being 15.
Yeah, stuff like that. The technological version of a nuclear explosion. They were trying to build it's like trying to build nuclear power, and they ended up with Chernobyl. Which is why I think control has to come back at some point, because we need to see where it goes. Because I think, didn't they just like basically get rid of it and just throw it out there?
No, Giorgio supposedly zapped it, unless there's like more copies or like a remnant of the file of the AI or something somewhere. She zaps it in the spore cube and kills it, thereby negating any reason for Disco to go to the 32nd century, other than it's a cooler place to explore new Trek and create new content, rather than trying to rehash what's already happened.
Yeah, I remember worrying that like the nanotechnology was going to find a way through Detmer's implant, but then that never seemed to happen.
I don't think Detmer's implant was that high tech, though.
Yeah,
not like
Arium. Might have been
Arium.
just like the perfect cover.
Yeah, no. I got the sense hers was more of a just functional, as opposed to giving her any special, like overly special enhancements. Because I mean, it went for Arium instead.
Yeah,
because she's more cybernetic than anybody. And I mean, it had no problem taking over her. And she was able to assert a little bit of control at the end to say, like, you gotta space me. But that was, I don't know, rewatching that scene was really, really hard. Yeah. I think that's one of the deaths that, it reminds me a little too much of Data.
It's a lot like Data.
Yeah. Knowing that that's the only solution. And I mean, I wish we'd have seen more of her, because like we said in the pre-show, I think you said it, Dustin, they kind of just jammed her backstory in there at the end, like why she's like cybernetic.
Right, like most of the characters of Discovery, we didn't get any backstory on her, and then, oh hey, here's some backstory. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was still kind of the opinion that she was she was so cybernetically augmented because it looked cool on the bridge, because then spent a lot of that season not really giving her anything to do, and then just sort of shoved her backstory in at the end.
Yeah, because she was just the spore drive operator. I mean, her job is literally just to basically press the go button. Like George Jetson, press the button. Press the button that makes it go. Do we think that Arium might have been technically Section 31?
Well, the way we answered the question a couple ago about how control isn't Section 31 by the time it evolves, I guess the answer is no.
That's fair.
I think maybe some of the cybernetic technologies she has might have been developed by 31, because they're pretty advanced, but I don't think she would be 31.
Yeah, I think the question was just meant as like, well, she's being controlled by control, which is technically 31, but...
Yeah.
If you were Section 31, which agent's approach would be your style? Would it be Leland, Giorgio, Tyler, Sloan, Harris?
I think I'd be much more of a Harris, let other people get their hands dirty while I'm working behind the scenes.
The smart one, let everyone else take the fall for you.
Yeah, and a little bit of a coward.
Is it cowardly or is it smart?
I'm going to go with Giorgio.
Me too, actually.
She is the ultimate badass, operative that we've ever seen in Section 31. Her morals aren't all there, but at least they come around by the end of Disco Season 3.
Mm-hmm.
She's got the best one-liners too.
Yeah.
I love some of them. Like, just because you use big words doesn't make you look smart. It means you own a dictionary. Like, she's like, nothing phases her. She's just so cold. And yeah, I would definitely, Georgiou would be my style. If I couldn't be her, I would say I'd be more Sloane. Again, cold.
That's fair.
So this probably answers the next question, but in case your answer is different, which agent is your favorite and which is your least favorite?
I will say, honestly, my answer is different because my favorite was Sloane. Is a lot of that because it's William Sadler? Maybe, because he's awesome. But it's just,
We got the back of the
there he is. But it's just the way he operates. He can show up on DS9 and disappear like a ghost. He's operating completely in the shadows because they have like no record of him at all. He even shows up in person on Romulus. Was it on Romulus? Yeah. On Romulus when Kretak is being interrogated. And it's this whole big show, apparently just to convince the Romulans that there actually is no Section 31, which is being told to them by a member of their council who is a member of Section 31. He's playing a super long game here and getting all the pieces to fall into place, even though he looks like he's just been put through the ringer and apparently, gets disrupted. It's a great performance. And then he turns around when it looks like Bashir's about to get the upper hand on him and commits suicide. And still almost wins the game in his own head by getting Bashir more focused on all the knowledge that he has of Section 31 instead of what he actually needs to save Odo. Sloane is he's a great Section 31 operative. I'd still be Harris.
Template. Who would be your least favorite then?
Maybe it's just my discovery bias, but it's going to have to be one of the ones from Disco. I admit I didn't rewatch any of the episodes, partly because I didn't have time, but mostly because, like, the way I feel about Discovery, I've never really rewatched an episode. So, yeah, that's going to be difficult for me.
Well, I'll give you a minute to think about it. My least favorite, I said, was Georgiou. I think my least favorite, I'm going with Harris here. His style is just really blunt force. I mean, granted, it's he's basically the first edition of Section 31, so he's writing the rules as he goes along. But he tries to enact the same kind of thing that Section 31 in the 24th century did with Koval, with the Klingons, and it does not pay off for him.
That's true.
So I think he's got some of the right ideas, but he doesn't know how to put them into practice. So just by being virtue of the least clever, I'm going with Harris.
Okay.
Even though I think I actually like Leland less because you're supposed to as a character.
Yeah.
But as a Section 31 operative, Harris is only okay.
I mean, my favorite is obviously Georgiou. Leland, I just find unlikable, but he's effective. I can't deny that the man Leland is an effective operative. He's just unlikable. Harris, I kind of give him a little bit of a pass in that, like you say, he's writing the rule book. He doesn't have anything to base it on. I would say my least favorite is Tyler because he's kind of doesn't want to be there.
Yep.
He's just kind of stuck there. He doesn't want to be there. He knows that nobody trusts him ever, and like, I honestly, as much as maybe he's happy to be not dead at the hands of the Klingons, I kind of wonder if death might have been a mercy for him because he's really not effective as Section 31.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that, and I would tack on, like, especially right there at the end, he says he's the guy in command of Section 31. And Discovery's just jumped to the 32nd century. I actually always found it odd that he was in charge of this super secret organization that somehow didn't leave some kind of information of discovery behind for like someone to find out at a later date, because he's got to assume that, you know, Section 31 is going to last as long as the Federation does. Granted, he couldn't have predicted, you know, the burn, but I just feel like there should have been some way to recall, like somebody should have been there to know what happened with Discovery.
And we keep coming back to this question of, does Section 31 have a headquarters post-Disco?
Yeah.
Here, it may indicate that they don't hold on to that information for decades and centuries, that they just pass down what's important from one mouth to another, and that's what you get. And if somebody that knew that one particular piece died, well, that's it.
To me, though, that would be hamstringing your own organization.
Yeah.
Like that, you wouldn't an organization would not survive and be effectual if it's being hamstringed like that. But I could see maybe a moving location. That's why I was saying like maybe an asteroid base or even like a ship. It's not a location that could move, because a moving target would be hard to find, even if it was purely an automated ship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with maybe a caretaker or two to kind of hold all the information.
Yeah, I just got to thinking, what if it is a moving location, like an asteroid or something, but like, what if it was on Halley's Comet?
All right, Mark Twain.
The only problem with the comet is, what if the comet eventually, you know, burnt up in an atmosphere?
Yeah. Yeah, there's that.
Whereas an asteroid field, nobody's going to really go there willingly, unless you're Han Solo.
You just got to find some people like the Children of the Comet episode and Strange New Worlds to watch over you for a couple thousand years. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that they would not pass information. Information has to be passed down somehow. Because otherwise, the organization isn't going to last.
Yeah, like you see Sloan at the end of it, like the inside of Sloan's head at the end of Extreme Measures. There's a lot of information in his head.
Yeah.
And hopefully that wasn't all just lost.
I don't think so. Especially because he deliberately made it look like a mess.
Right.
So I have a feeling that was showing him trying to obscure the real stuff with the nonsense. Because for a guy who's as meticulous and deliberate and planned as Sloan, a messy head would not otherwise make sense. Because nobody's going to have a head that looks like that and be as meticulous as he is, because Sloan doesn't really make mistakes.
Yeah, I was thinking while I was just rewatching that, actually, that I was guessing like that office started out really orderly, but then as Sloan was dying and his brain was shutting down, it became more and more disorganized.
That would actually fit with what neurologists have found when people get close to death. And they talk about like seeing their life go before their eyes.
Yep.
So that would actually fit.
Yeah, I did a video on that, actually. It's been theorized that it's due to a chemical produced in the brain called dimethyltryptamine.
Oh, Jesus, what a name.
I know, right?
Was that from your Back to the Future one?
Yeah.
I love that. If anybody gets a chance to watch just one video by this guy, go watch his alternate take on what really is going on in Back to the Future.
Season 2, it's called A Matter of Time and Death.
Oh, okay. And then our last question we have here is, was Buenamigo with Section 31? If I said his name right.
Maybe to get a hold of Rutherford's code. Otherwise, I really think he was just out for himself.
I didn't get the sense he was Section 31 at all. He really doesn't fit what they would be looking for. And yeah, like you said, he's very much out for him. He's very much out for him. Like, he really only cares about himself. And I mean, with Section 31, you'd almost have to not care about yourself because of the kind of work they're doing.
True.
I mean, like Sloan doesn't really care about himself.
Yeah, I think it's odd that he doesn't wear a black badge when we see the backstory of Rutherford this past season.
Oh yeah.
But it really, really, the whole thing with Rutherford and in the Texas class ships and the AI, it all screams of Section 31. Especially
Yeah.
where Buen Amigo goes off the deep end and, yeah, again thinks he's doing what's right and classic Starfleet Admiral stuff.
Yeah, but
One,
again, that does seem like it's more about not necessarily what's right for Starfleet, but more what's right for him, because he's talking about, you get to a certain point, you got to do something to stand out, and it's like, oh, I got these ships, they're automated. I really wanted to see the inside of a Texas class ship, because I was trying to figure out how they're transporting these pre-made structures. Like, are they making them on the ship? Like, are they making the parts on the ship and transporting them all together, or what?
Like the vehicle replicator from Protostar.
Yeah.
I don't see, like what you said about you get to a certain point and you have to do something to be noticed. That's along the lines of when I think it was Captain Kirk tells Captain or Admiral Kirk tells Captain Picard, don't let them put you behind the desk.
Right.
Because as long as you're out here, you're doing something important. But as soon as they put you behind the desk, that's it. So that would kind of fit, because Buen Amigo was more career ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen Federation admirals and scientists and stuff do things for their own career that have totally gone haywire, or they've produced something really epic, but like the computer in the original series that kind of takes over the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Why was he doing it? He was doing it to further his career.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't doing it because it was necessarily what was good for Starfleet. Or like the Pegasus, that was somebody trying to further themselves.
Yep.
So I don't think Buen Amigo is Section 31. Maybe he's got some technologies he's gotten from them, but I did notice too, like between Enterprise and Discovery and Deep Space Nine, Section 31 uniforms don't change.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. All 3 time periods we've seen them in, they're all
black.
wear that black leather thing.
Yeah. Which looks a lot also like what Crewman Daniels wears once he's dead and we see him in the time traveling episodes.
Yeah, that's a weird shirt that I really want.
It's a weird shirt you really want. But yeah, like I noticed that because the Federation uniforms seem to change whenever somebody gets bored, but the Section 31 uniforms just don't change at all. They're black.
Yeah.
Which is, on one hand, okay, is that going to help you be noticed or not be noticed?
Mm. Damn.
Because it's like what Boimler says with the black badges, if we're supposed, why do we wear black badges if nobody's supposed to know?
Right.
Which I just got my Section 31 badge. So
nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, I had to get.
Actually, raised a question. I know it's not on here, but
Yeah.
we're talking about how Section 31 is, more effective because they go underground, or because they went underground, more or less. But then, thanks to Lower Decks, and I know it was probably just making, a reference like Lower Decks does, but the other time it's mentioned is in the first season, just a quick throwaway line when Boimler's doing speed walking. He's like, yeah, Section 31 walks like this. It's like, how well is Section 31 known that like even Boimler knows about them and so on?
Well, you'd figure rumors would get around.
Yeah, after the Dominion War and it kind of comes out through Cisco and stuff, I'm sure it probably got around more.
Kind of like how the Q weren't known to everyone, but were known to some, because like when Q shows up on Deep Space Nine, the one who recognizes him is O'Brien, and he goes to Cisco and he goes, "It's Q," and everybody goes, "What's a Q?" And Cisco goes, "I was briefed on the Q." So, something that big that's had their hands in everything, and considering that Sloan was operating out in the open, especially like with the Romulans there, you'd have to assume rumors would get around.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, how many like even nowadays, sure we have like going back to like the black ops of like the CIA, people had rumors even back when they were doing their MK Ultra that the CIA was dabbling in mind control, and people go, "Oh no, that wasn't happening. That wasn't." And then they declassified it, and what were they doing?
Mhm.
So, I mean, you can't keep from rumor getting around,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Or maybe they have something like what they did in Stargate, like maybe there's some sort of entertainment program about Section 31 that kids watch, like a spy show, you know, to give them deniability, just like Stargate does with the whole wormhole extreme thing. You know, they let the guy have his show because he
Mhm.
knows about the Stargates, because then they say, well, then we can just deny it because it's a TV show. So maybe it's something that they've allowed to get little bits into like their popular culture, just enough to give them like deniability.
Maybe. I definitely
Yeah.
don't think Starfleet would hold a briefing, even with like top level captains, about Section 31. But that's very plausible. You got
Yeah.
a really plausible theory there.
So do we have any other questions?
No, I think we've covered them all.
Yep.
The only question we can't answer is when do we get the show?
Wow, please.
Right?
Yeah.
Section there hasn't been an official talk or even like Kurtzman vaguely mentions it since 2021. There was that recent bit of news that we've covered a couple of times here about Julian Bashir supposedly being confirmed for the show, but that doesn't give me any more confidence that there's a show till we see it.
Because I know when Discovery came out, the first thing I was thinking back in season 1 is, I bet we're going to see Section 31. And a friend and I had a bet, and he's like, you won't see Section 31 in Discovery. I said, no, we will, because if you look at Discovery, it's very much the ends justify the means, which is also Deep Space Nine, which
And
is
it's
also Enterprise.
and generally a more dark story to tell, which
Yeah.
I mean, Section 31 just falls right into.
Yeah, whereas Voyager and TNG and original series were more hopeful for the most part. The others are more dark, and so Section 31 doesn't make sense there. But yeah, we all want. I just want the show now. That's all I want. I want to see Michelle Yeoh, you know, throwing her weight around and kicking some ass, and
Yeah,
because
I
I know
really
she.
have to question whether we're still going to get Michelle Yeoh, even though, like, in researching this topic, I didn't realize it was her original idea for the show. It wasn't Kurtzman pitching it to her. It was her that pitched it to Kurtzman.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it would be weird now to have a show without her, but man, her star in Hollywood has risen fast in the last 3 years.
That is true.
She's been in just about everything at this point. I mean, the first thing I ever saw her in was Memoirs of a Geisha, where she plays a completely different role in a lot of ways. But I do see some of that role, the mothering side. You see it a little bit in Discovery, the way she acts towards Burnham. But, you know, I know most people probably knew her first from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but I wasn't really into the martial arts movies at that time. So, but I mean, she's been in one of the Marvel ones. Shang-Chi,
Oh, yeah.
because she leads the village. She's the leader of the village. Like, she's in a lot of projects lately, so I have to wonder if maybe that's the holdup, is the fact that she's in so many projects. Robbie says you watching her in The Witcher Blood Origins. I haven't watched The Witcher.
Not watching The
I
Witcher.
haven't seen it. I haven't played the game
tried.
either, even though I hear it's the greatest
It's
video
great.
game of all time.
I tried watching it. I just couldn't get into it. He's like, good movie. So we've heard. All right. So if that's all our questions, then I guess.
Well, thanks, Eve, for coming up with this fun topic and hosting today. And thanks to all my co-hosts for joining us on Buffer Time. If you enjoyed the program, please consider a like and subscribe below. We'll be back next Saturday and most Saturdays after. We'll catch you talking about the Q Continuum next week. Peace and long life.